Hello everyone, this is Bridget Baggett with Career Innovations. I want to first thank everyone for taking time to attend the workshop. This is a job seeker question and answer session. This is for you. This is for people that are either looking to make a career move or currently in the process of transitioning to a new career or maybe unemployed. So you do not have to be unemployed to attend the workshop. These workshops are for anyone that may be looking for employment elsewhere. Let me go ahead and first start that we do get these every Monday from 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so you can actually register whenever you like. I will go ahead and start recording the sessions because I have been getting great feedback that they would love to review some of the Q&As that we have in previous sessions. I will be uploading those on YouTube under our Career Innovations channel, and you can actually be directed to that channel by visiting our website and clicking on the YouTube link, and that'll take you directly to our YouTube page. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and give you a short 30-second interview or synopsis about who we are and a firm overview of what we do. Again, I'm Bridget Baggett. I'm with Career Innovations. I'm a headhunter. Some people call it a recruiter, a consultant. There are many names of what I do. I'm pretty much over staffing and recruiting. We use innovative and unconventional methods to find some of our candidates. We pretty much do headhunting, which means that we kind of shy away from using job board ads, and we really like to get back with the basics and just pick up the phone and call candidates that may be interested in new career opportunities. My passion is organizational change. I really feel that the organization is really which drives either retaining and gaining new employees. I think it boils down to the organizational culture, and I think that's really the piece which attracts the top talent, which a lot of organizations desire. So I really like to work with organizational change and implementation, not only to find candidates, but also find ways to retain them in their organization for years to come. My favorite quote actually comes from the book Good to Great by Jim Collins. You definitely should check that book out. One of the quotes in there is, "Good is the enemy of great. Few people attain great lives, partly because it's just so easy to settle for a good one." That's a great book, Good to Great by Jim Collins, and that's one of the, I have many quotes, but that's one of the quotes that I do favor. And I usually have this in my email signature as well as my LinkedIn profile, because I really think that a lot of people should push themselves to greatness. Okay, first thing that we're going to talk about before we get to the questions. I did not get a lot of questions. I'm actually doing an overview of some things that I do get repeated questions on that a lot of people do ask about these topics that I've covered in the past. So I think that people may be having some issues with these topics. So I wanted to go ahead and just address this again. And this is pretty much the basis of your career search. This is what you want to do before you start applying to jobs, before you start reaching out to decision makers, and sometimes before you decide on what your next career move is going to be. You really want to put together some type of plan of action. And it's a preliminary plan, and it should include these elements. Some form, fashion, or some way you should have some type of plan in place that's going to illustrate effective marketing. What are some of the competitive research tools that you're going to be using? How are you going to build relationships with these companies? How are you going to build relationships with the decision makers within these companies? How are you going to sell yourself? What are you going to do to close the deal? You always want to have some type of follow-up process, and this goes either way, whether or not you actually get an interview or you don't. You still want to have some type of process in place that you're keeping these people in your network, you're keeping these decision makers close, and you want to have some type of feedback process. You really can't critique something that you don't know about. And I find it very pertinent that you get feedback so you know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. So when you move forward in interviews and you start networking, you won't be making the same mistakes over and over again. So you don't want to live in the ignorance is bliss mentality. You want to have some type of feedback so you can figure out, maybe my strongest point is not interviewing. Maybe I need to work on my interview skills, or maybe I need to work on my resume. Get that feedback, because people will tell you, if your resume is not up to par, if you didn't interview as strong as they thought you would. So you really want to be able to get that feedback, so when you do get that job or that opportunity that you truly want, you'll be prepared. So you definitely want to make sure the feedback process is somewhere in your plan. Also, some key questions that you want to be able to ask yourself is how will you retain current employment? What is your plan to do this? What industries are you looking at? What are some of the resources that you're currently using? And what are some of the resources that are available out there? And these are two different answers. People are using a lot of resources, but they don't know that there's resources out there that are available to them to either critique their search, to strengthen their search, or to even narrow down their search. So you definitely want to know the tools that you're using and compare them to the tools that are available to you to use. What's working and what's not. A lot of times no one wants to take a step back and look at the big picture. You don't want to look at what are some things that's working in this entire process, or what are some things that are holding me back. So you definitely want to be able to look at the things that you're doing that are bringing you positive results, and you also want to look at the things that you're doing that may be hindering your results. And we're going to take a closer look at that as we move forward in the slides, and I can actually pinpoint some things that people are doing, or I've come across to see candidates do repeatedly, that really are pushing them closer to their ultimate goal, which may be to make a lateral move within their organization they're currently working with, or even to get another position elsewhere. So you definitely want to make sure the things that you're doing is really going to generate the results that you're seeking. Navigating your career search, the technical advantage. In 2014, we are pretty much overwhelmed with the technology that's out there that can not only help us find a job, but that can connect us to people that we've lost touch with. We have so much technology out there to make us competitive and market ourselves to the best of our abilities. And a lot of people aren't using those resources. And there's a lot of people that are. But what's happening is the people that are taking advantage of the resources out there to make themselves marketable, again in the form of technology, are having an advantage over the people that aren't. And there's a lot of people that are not using the technology that are just as competitive, if not more, but they just don't know how to present that. They just don't know how to get that message across to the employers and to the decision makers. So you want to use technology to gain a competitive edge and to make yourself much more marketable. You want to review the demand of the industry that you're currently in, or the industry that you're seeking. And this is the one thing that I hear from a lot of candidates that are trying to make a career change or trying to venture into a new industry, is that a lot of people haven't done their homework. They don't know what that industry's in demand. They don't know the industry trends. They don't know what organizations within that industry are hiring, what organizations are laying off. There are a lot of organizations that are reorganizing and going through different mergers and acquisitions. Are you aware of this? So these are the things that you need to know when you start to venture into a new industry. And these are things you really need to know in the current industry that you're in. So regardless if you're seeking employment elsewhere outside your industry, or you may even be seeking employment within the industry that you have most of your experience, these are some of the things that you need to know, because these can be external elements that may be holding you back from your next opportunity. You may be applying to a empty well if they aren't hiring in that industry. If you don't know the growth, just like one industry in particular was, the print industry. That pretty much when the internet came out and everything was online and people were blogging and newspapers started putting their entire newspapers online, the print industry dried up. There was a lot of journalists and a lot of writers that had to conform to this change, and now we have all these bloggers that are out there. So you really want to take in consideration the industry that you're in and the changes that it may go through. And I actually have a story that I was working with a company that, had several positions that were posted online, and we were trying to work together, and I just couldn't get any traction. And I had to research this company thoroughly to figure out, why aren't we getting traction in the hiring process? And come to find out, the company was in the middle of a merger and acquisition. They were actually being bought out by another company. And I had to do my homework, because a lot of times this information isn't willingly released until they have all their ducks in a row. But I was able to stumble upon some information to put together that this company was actually going through a merger. So a lot of the positions that they had were, they were frozen. They put a lot of their jobs, they froze a lot of their jobs. So it wasn't feasible for me to continue to push to get candidates to this particular company, especially if they weren't ready to hire. Not only was I wasting the candidate's time, I was wasting my time as well. So you definitely want to make sure that the companies in the industry that you're hiring with, or applying to, don't have any type of roadblocks in place that can prevent you to move to the next level. One thing that you also want to look at that's going to confirm, whether or not you're going to be a very marketable candidate, is you want to look at your transferable skills. And again, this is regardless if you're making a lateral move or you're making a career change. You want to make sure that your education and your experience aligns with the requirements. And a lot of times we just have, ambitions that are bigger than us, and we want to be able to make this career move, but we really don't have the education or experience to back that up. So this is the time, again, to step back and see, how do I make myself competitive so I can competitively apply to this position? And one thing I actually do when I'm looking for a candidate is, one thing I actually ask some of my clients to send me over their best candidates. So let me take a look at some of their employees that already work there and point out the superstars. I want to duplicate that. I want to find someone that can line up with the person that's doing a stellar job for your organization. And that's something that you should also be doing with your career search. Find someone in your industry that's a superstar, and find what their background is. And a lot of this stuff, again, is accessible online. We have LinkedIn, we have Facebook, we have so many online profiles that you can find people that are in your industry that are standing out and pretty much the innovators of a particular industry that you can somewhat mirror. You can somewhat try to figure out, where's their background? What kind of education did they have? What certifications are they pursuing? What gives them that competitive edge that draws all the employers to them? And that's when you want to be able to look at what you have to offer. And sometimes it's a reality check. What are some things I need to work on? What are some things that I need to improve on to make myself competitive in this industry? Again, so you do want to make sure that your education and your experience align with the requirements. And when it comes down to it, you want to be able to market yourself. And as you can see on this slide, there's different ways you can market yourself. Social media isn't going anywhere. Social media is here to stay. Regardless if it's Facebook today and another book tomorrow, all this stuff is here to stay. But you want to make yourself understand this particular technology, because this is what the employers are using to connect with a lot of their potential candidates. People are using personal websites, networking cards. They're getting out there and going to different networking events. They're joining various industry-related associations. And you really want to network with with a purpose. Repositioning oneself in the job market is no longer a luxury. It has become and will remain a fundamental requirement. Employers are not looking for warm bodies anymore. They're trying to find not only ways to meet their budgets, but also ways to maximize it. So they're just not looking for someone that they're going to bring in just to get a paycheck. They want the innovators. They want someone that they can bring into their organization that's going to be a game changer. So you want to look to see what's making you competitive and how will you market yourself. So that's one question you want to ask yourself. How do you plan to get your message across to hiring managers and HR personnel? Whether it's through some of the options that I have on this slide, are you going to use social media? Are you going to invest in a personal website? Are you going to invest in something as simple as revising your resume and cover letter, just so you can articulate your message and your transferable skills? One question you want to also ask yourself, what differentiates you from other candidates? What makes you different? What are what's unique about your skills, background, or interests? Is a resume just enough now? A resume may open the door, but what's going to allow you to walk through it? What skills or what's going to stand out about you that's going to woo the employer? You also want to look at building relationships. You want to see, has building relationship also as a way to be competitive as well? We've all heard the saying, it's not it's not what you know, it's who you know. So you want to also get involved, and that's why I have on this slide networking events and interrelated associations. A lot of times people hear jobs not from job boards, but from other people that they network with. Now, I've had candidates that receive job offers just off of word of mouth. So you want to be able to network and build those relationships. What networking events do you plan to attend in the near future that are related to reaching your goal? And I had to put in related to reaching your goal because there's a lot of people out there that network all day, but they're not doing anything that is going to be related to reaching the goal that they have set for themselves. There's no point of going to networking events if you're not going to put yourself in a position to meet someone that can push you towards your goal. Because that's what happens. You end up wasting your time on unrelated events. Next thing we're going to look at is the pros and the cons. Create what you don't want into something that you need. I did get questions about working in positions that were no longer challenging, no longer engaging. Some of the cons and some of the pros to doing that and being in a position where you feel that it may not be any growth whatsoever. There's some people that, accepted a position where they just didn't see it aligning with their career goals. And some of the cons can be that you can be easily distracted. You can become uncooperative. There can also be cases of being absent, activism. Trying to move forward with that. Poor performance, anger, and resentment. So you want to make sure you're not being in a position where you're not getting anything done. That's one thing what happens when you're distracted. You're in a position that you're not getting anything done. Performance is not at its best. And when you're in that position, you get overlooked for opportunities for advancement. And that's the same thing with poor performance. Poor performance, of course, can negatively affect raises, promotions, affect being put on special projects and assignments. Anger, which turns into resentment, is pretty much a cancer of any type of corporation or organization. You don't want to be in a position where any type of disciplinary actions have to be taken, or you're labeled as a person that just cannot work or get along with others. And once you become that person, it's very, very hard to obtain any type of referrals or anything to push you forward towards your goal. So you don't want to lash out and blame others for negative outcomes. One thing that you do want to look at that actually can be a positive for working in a position that may not quite align with your career goals, you want to be able to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture means to look at, how can this position, even though it's not really what I want to do, how can this push me to doing what I want to do? How can this be a stepping stone to bridge that gap to the career I really want to do? You can be gaining experience out of it. You can also have a gift of discovery. When I call a gift of discovery is pretty much using your job to find what you truly are passionate about. And a lot of times people do this. I've heard people that cross-trained on different departments and found out that, one particular department they felt that they wanted to be in versus another, and they actually were able to find out what they truly want to do by being cross-trained on many things. So that's something that you can talk to your employer about, is seeing if they can engage you in being cross-trained on different departments or different tasks, so that way you can gain that gift of discovery. Again, this can also be a building block or opportunity for you to build on this, and this is also a way to start to make connections. Building your Rolodex and also having some type of resources out there that can help you move forward. Next slide is the employer's point of view. Your dream is an employer's dream come true, and this is pretty much aligning some of the things that happens when you are working in a position that you want to work in. You can become a top producer, you have high performance, innovative, it brings a positive brand to the organization as a whole. It cuts the overall cost, because now they're not having to replace you or put money into hiring or recruiting. You have a healthier environment, healthier workforce, and you're a sought out professional. Recruiters love people that are top producers, they're high performers, and they're innovators. That is what recruiters are drawn to. So when you're working in the position that you love, these are some of the things that employers look at, and these are some of the things that employers really point out when they find those people or those candidates that can bring different opportunities to different organizations. One of the questions that I did get in past, or I did receive in past workshops, I have them actually here on this slide. There's no security in life, only opportunity. It's up to you to build your future. And we just talked about some things. What can I do to make myself more competitive? We talked about engaging in technology, knowing your field, knowing your industry. How can I get more interviews? Again, that's really connecting to decision makers, allowing them to not only connect with them when you want a job. These are people that you want to keep in your network all the time. And that's one thing that as professionals we know. We kind of know when someone comes around when they need something. And you don't want to become that person that just comes around when you need something. You want to be able to build this network so moving forward you're able to connect with people on more so of a social basis, in a professional basis, rather than I'm just connecting with you because I need your help. Another way you can get more interviews, just calling in and setting up some type of informational interview. This is what some candidates have done in the past. They find ways to just learn more about the company, speak with some of the decision makers, some of the hiring managers. We're not talking about a long, 1 or 2 hour overview, just 15 minutes at a time to talk about some of the things they have lined up for either, this quarter or next quarter. You'll be amazed. People love to talk about themselves and the things that they got going on in their life. So you should get very little resistance just to speak with someone about what they're currently working on, some of the things that they're doing, some of the activities that their company will be engaged in. So you really want to be able to just have that dialogue open so you can build that relationship. What am I doing wrong? I'm applying but never hearing any type of response. Help. That goes back to looking at what you're applying to, the industry that you're applying in, and does your background, which includes your education and experience, align with the overall goals of the organization or the job that you're applying to. A lot of times when people are just applying just to apply, and we all can sense when people are just sending us that cookie cutter resume. You want to make sure that you're sending these companies things that are going to be tailored to the organization itself. And it does take time. And we've actually spoke with candidates that said, finding a job is a job, and I couldn't agree with you more. This does take time. This isn't just, an email blast of your resume. So you want to make sure that what you're applying to aligns with what you can actually do. You also want to look at the companies that you're applying to as well. That goes back to doing your homework. Are these companies going through anything that may slow down the hiring process? We talked about mergers. We talked about, going through any type of acquisitions where some of the positions can be on freeze. So you want to be able to do some research on some of the companies that you're applying to. Also do research on how many people are applying to these companies, especially, if you're applying to an organization where one particular job is averaging over 600 resumes, 9 times out of 10, you might not get a response. So you also have to take that into consideration as well. How many people are applying to these jobs? And again, I'm not letting the employers off the hook. They should have some type of autoresponders in place, some way to notify the applicant if their application or their resume is no longer being considered. So that way you're not sitting on pins and needles. Totally understandable on that half. But also you should always be moving forward. And I tell people, unless you have a offer on the table, you always should be applying. You always should be still reaching out, still engaging employers, still networking until there's an offer on the table. Even if you've been called back for interviews, nothing's guaranteed until your first day of work. That's the way I look at it, because I've seen people where, they even been offered positions and their start dates have been pushed up, and nothing's really guaranteed until you walk in on that first day of work. So you really want to make sure that you're still engaging employers. You're looking at the industry that you're applying to. You're reviewing your resume, and you're actually getting some of these decision makers on the phone. Sometimes just reaching out to them and having a conversation versus an employer just going through hundreds of resume. You won't believe the impact it would have. What are some ways to keep a job search confidential? And I'm pretty sure this question was related to someone that was looking for or seeking employment while they were currently working, and I can totally understand why you would want to keep your job search confidential. You don't want your employer to know that you're currently looking. You may not even want your colleagues or coworkers to know that you're looking. And the way you can do that is just by utilizing, especially if you're applying on LinkedIn, just utilizing some tools to make yourself anonymous. So that way, if anyone's account or profile that you're looking at, you can be seen as anonymous. They won't know that it's you. Another way could also be, like I said, reaching directly out to the person that either posts the job or someone that's in any type of HR function or hiring manager function. And that way, just, introducing yourself, let them know where you stand. And, a lot of times I'm going to say most of the time, they do respect that you are looking, you're doing a confidential search. But those are some of the key ways that you can do it, especially if have your resume out online. You can, close your resume or make your resume unsearchable, so that way employers cannot find your resume. The only people that would see your resume is the companies or employers that you directly submitted through applying to a job directly or sending it to them via email. So that way you can keep your information protected online, so you aren't searchable even in resume databases. So that's another way that you can keep your search confidential. If you're working with a recruiter, tell them. Let them know that, hey, I'm gainfully employed. My current employer does not know that I'm looking, and I would really like to keep it this way. Is there any way that we can keep this confidential? So definitely let any type of recruiter, any type of outplacement agency or staffing agency that you're working with, make sure they know that you're doing a confidential search. And in reality, anytime you are working with a candidate one-on-one, it's kept confidential anyway. They don't release your information without your permission. So that should be a given with, any recruiter or agency that you're working with. But then definitely voice that when you're working with them and let them know where you stand on that in your position in the workforce, and you really are trying to keep everything confidential. And they will truly honor your request. So that's something, those are the 4 questions I've had in the past. Again, I didn't get any questions this week pertaining to job seekers. We did have a lot of people that did sign up but didn't get any questions. So I wanted to go ahead and review some of the questions that I've received that were kind of repetitive to some of the workshops that I've done in the past. So I just wanted to just pretty much refresh everyone's memory, get everyone back on track. And this pretty much is the basis of doing a career search. This is just the building blocks. And it really starts with putting together some type of plan. We do have a workshop going on for the month of February, is putting the action in your plan. You can find that online by going to the website. We go into great detail about putting together an action plan. And we also have our networking boot camp, which is actually a 2-hour workshop. It's a virtual workshop as well, and we go through all facets of the preliminary plan that I spoke about in the beginning, basically putting the components together piece by piece, and we do that for 2 hours. So that's a very, very intense workshop for people that are looking to really turn up their job search a little bit more, get the need to know details. You can take a look at the video that outlines what we'll be covering. We'll be covering tactics on getting emails, being able to reach out to hiring decisions directly, and a lot of the techniques that we talk about our firm uses. So we know that they work. So we're not giving you information that we don't use ourselves. So this is some ways that you can engage with employers one-on-one, so you will not be relying heavily on strictly job boards. And that's what a lot of candidates are currently using, and that's their only line of defense, is let me just apply to this job online. And there's different avenues that you can take, which is going to give you much more effective and better results. And we cover that in our 2 workshops as well. So you can go ahead and take a look at our events page, and we have a couple workshops coming up. I'm going to go ahead. I don't see any questions right now that came in. And again, this workshop is for you. We really want to make sure this is something that is useful. You can implement this information. You can put this into your job seeking plan and make this the best search that you can make it, and just don't rely strictly on job boards. So we definitely want to make sure this is something that's useful to you. And my contact information is here. You can reach me directly by email or phone. Again, visit online. If you do want to talk to me and have a one-on-one, definitely click the schedule button. There's a click to schedule button on there that you can click to schedule a one-on-one with me if you would like to speak one-on-one about some things that we have to offer. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great night.